Yo, dudes. Hey guys, this is the ownership here. With a little different video this time, especially one that will kind of show you and prove you that six cores in 2020. Hold on a second. 2020 Black Ops Cold War came out in 2020. The 2600X I was using here is from 2018. Then we use 16 gigs of RAM and a GTX 980. Yeah, that's what I had around that time for a little while. But with a 3800X. Now, medium to high settings ish, 60 FPS all the time was kind of possible. It actually was possible on a 3800X. Not on a 2600X. You can see here in the menu on the top right corner, I'm going to some stuff. Yeah, I was playing with a controller because my second PC setup isn't really meant to be played games on. So, other than controller games and not shooters. But this kind of shows you we are deeply throttling the whole system. The 16 gigs are totally smashed. We are already using the SSD, and cached and committed RAM is about 30 gigs, because Cold War would use a lot more memory than just 16 gigs. 16 gigs for this game is not enough, simply put. The 980, that mofo could actually still play some decent games if it's not like 2020. As you can see here, 80, 70, 80 FPS, you can see it's heavily fluctuating. CPU and GPU time are kind of equally, as they should be most of the time. Don't get me wrong, the 2600X is nothing considered being slow as a whole, not only for gaming, but as a CPU in general. It's not a slow CPU, even though it's approaching like 5 years old. It came out in 2018. 2 years before that game. It was a mid-range chip launched for around 250, if I'm not mistaken, or $200, which is, yeah, a little bit different to be looked at these days, when you can have these for somewhere around 50 to 70, 80-ish bucks used. Obviously not gonna perfectly play Cold War. People mostly say 6 cores is all you need, and 16 gigs of RAM is fine, and a modest graphics card. Yeah, if you want to have a startery, hangingy mess, that's fine. One thing I didn't show in here, I was switching to my window view to also see task manager utilization and stuff. But what you didn't see, that I had like 6-7 tabs open, all in paused, mostly YouTube tabs, and a few research tabs. I'm not even sure yet anymore. The usual crap that you do. And Discord. That should be fine in a 6 core, right? No. Maybe you can see here in the game that it's quite stuttery. It's not perfect. It's absolutely playable. Don't get me wrong. It is playable, but it's not a pleasant experience at all. It is it's a stuttery mess. Even at 80 FPS, the FPS does not mean much, guys. The FPS seems fine, but if you played this, the latency, especially from 2nd gen Ryzen, is not good in particular. I've played this game on a 3800X, 8 core 16 thread instead of the R5 2600X, which is a 6 core 12 thread. I'm gonna do that real quick in a second. I'm here setting all this up. And the difference was night and day. The input lag was gone. Even the 2700X would do a much better job at this game than anything under that. It would use 8 cores, and matter of fact, even 8 cores might not be enough at some point. As you can see, when I switch there, we are over 60% usage, sometimes 40 or whatever. Well, let's skip back. We are at 50 utilization, whole utilization. That's not just the game, but everything else has to run and being processed as well. As you can see, we are slamming it basically. One thing to tell you guys about Task Manager: over 50% utilization of anything means you're using it, other than the RAM probably. But over 50% of the CPU is basically slamming all of the cores it's got. And if it goes way up than that, 53 is kind of using 1 or 2 hyperthreads already, and we could 68. So we're using definitely a lot. We are packed at the utilization. Okay, the 980 obviously has more work to do. It's more like a other bottleneck situation. Mostly what people would have is a graphics card bottleneck. But even with something like a 1080 Ti, the difference didn't really change, other than we have more FPS. But the game is still as hangy, as having hangs in there, weird lags, freezes, stutters in there, of latency issues as before. The 980 versus the 1080 Ti didn't change a whole lot, other than the game probably looks better, but it even looks worse than than a PS4 Pro would actually would. But maybe you can see it, maybe you cannot. But the CPU time is 16 seconds, as you can see, and 13 seconds on the GPU. So the GPU is still somewhat faster, and see, it's gonna get a little bit bottlenecked. A 980 is gonna get bottlenecked by a Ryzen 5 2600X, which means this is actually quite a terrible CPU. But mostly due to the game's terrible optimization. That aside, probably every grandma knows that Call of Duty Cold War is a shitty optimized game. Not the game is shitty, but the technical aspect of it is totally rat's ass. We have cached 27 gigs of RAM. We're already using 14. And as you can see there you guys have to look. Not just what it's active in use, but it's also committed, cached, and running in the background. 2666 megahertz. Yeah, that problem I understand is on Ryzen, but that's due to a RAM that I got from a friend. Because I thought it would be fine, but then my use case changed, so I need a better RAM too as well. Maybe I will do some tests with 3200 see if that persists, but according to CPU utilization, it would be still the same, and it would have hangs in there. Maybe less, but it would have. And that's the whole problem. 96 megabytes of, if you caught that, 96 megs already used. It's actually free. Like, this is not even enough for just one Chrome tab. That's awful. Not to speak of my aim. That one as well. Oh, well, it gets better as we go on. I'm also not a huge controller Call of Duty player either, but yeah, that guy really had it on me. Trying to get that beast out of that corner. That's it's usually Call of Duty. There's some things never changing. But anyway, the PC is kind of like not liking me playing it anymore, or at all, because we're stressing that whole PC. Even though the 980 is actually stronger, but not by much so than a PS4 Pro. To be honest, probably would beat it in raw performance, but in unoptimized games, you can have a 1080 Ti, which plays this game on high settings, 100 FPS, nicely, good, and medium high. It plays it wonderfully. With the right CPU though. If you played that, it played almost like the one I had with the i7 2600K from 2011, a 4-core 8-thread chip. Would play that game almost the same. That's because even 6 cores is not enough. The single core performance of Ryzen Plus, Zen Plus, Ryzen 2000 is not great, and that much higher of a 2600X. Or maybe like a 2600K, maybe a 4790K kind of era, but with 6 cores, which wasn't bad in 2018. I guess, guys, I'm not attacking anyone that has a PC like this. This is my second PC, of course. I would never want to play on this. I would rather play on my PS4 than playing this. I'm playing on that second PC. I'm mostly playing indie games, 2017, 18 games, maybe 19. Or if it's a 2020 game, it's not a AAA title. If it's like Session, that's fine. Skate XL, that's more than fine. Even like a 4-core, 4th gen i5, it would be nice and decent. And the 980s and 16 gigs of RAM, well. But that's why this system performs really well, is because I'm treating it accordingly. I'm not treating it as a high-end system anymore these days, because you would be a little insane to believe that. Now, we have somewhere around 60 to 80 FPS, which sounds decent. That's a 60 Hz monitor. But as we go down there, 55, 56, that's not as bad. But the bad aspect of it is not the stutters, it's the latency, that the loading times, clicking on things, trying to shoot. A controller still has latency, even though the one I'm using is a Xbox One which has a cable on it. So the latency should be dope, decent as it can get, but it's terrible. Sometimes the CPU is even slower reacting than the GPU, as you can see in GPU and CPU time. Now we can hear further. Oh, that bitch killed me. So I need to get back, get those guys. I'm not gonna resist, but we're halfway through, I think. Yeah. But guys, this is not to say people that have these systems are dumb or whatever. If that's all you can afford, that's totally fine. Nobody ever, other than assholes, would count you on that. It's playable. You not want to play it like that though, only if you have to. But something like a 2700X would be the bare minimum I would get these days to play this game, because of the 8 cores. And a 3600X would play this game better. It would not be perfect. It would be quite good enough for most people, probably. 3600X in that game. 2019, 1 year apart, mid-range CPU. That's probably fine. But I would suggest like a 3800X. That's probably all you need for that. To play it 99% of the time nice. If you want to have 120% or amazing experience, I would suggest like a 10850K even. Or an i9 7900X even, 10 core. That would do much better than a 3800X would give you. Maybe even than a 5800X from AMD. Yes, this is much older, but X299 has some different magic to it. And has quad channel memory. Can also put cheaply more memory into it than usually because of the 8 RAM slots. But as you can see, guys, you not want to play this. Even at medium settings, it's not nice, and it looks quite a bit worse than a 2600X, than a PS4 Pro would do, or PS4 Slim would look like, and actually runs better on the PS4 as well than it does here. Even it's on an N.2 SSD as well, a Samsung 980, which is not terrible. Okay, SD RAM less as AF, but still has some nice beat bump over any SATA SSD, but that doesn't help the PC because the CPU is bottlenecking all of it. 16 gigs of RAM also, guys, today, laughable. Don't get 16 gigs this time. If you think that's the way games should be played, or there's not more 16 cores, 6 cores, then you play garbage. If you're fine with garbage, because I've played it on my main PC which has a 20, it had at some point a 2600X. It has a i7 7820X and a RTX 3070. that is wonders above this system here. Even the CPU, if we would play this with a 980, it would still be better, especially on low, because the CPU is helping processing that all for the graphics card fast enough. But 16 gigs, guys, this game probably would even suck up 48 gigs because the textures are huge. They're mega huge. And as you can see, we're totally fucked with our CPU. Yeah, that's how it basically is. And yeah, maybe tell me in the comment section if you like what you saw, a little bit different approach to my videos. And maybe I will check out the next game, maybe with a 1080 Ti or a 2600X and the 3070. Let me know in the comments below. Peace out.